simple plot moves forward. The action in a simple plot moves forward without sudden or violent changes. Such plots, simple plots, are without peripety and discovery. Complex plot involves peripety or discovery or both. Now let us discuss what is peripety and discovery. Peripety, Aristotle defines peripety as the change in the situation, the change in the condition, the change in the status of things, the change in the things to its opposite. By discovery, he means the recognition of truth, and according to Aristotle, that discovery is of the best type, which is accompanied by, or which has with it peripety. And for this he gives the example of Sophocles' play Oedipus the King. He says that the discovery that is found in Oedipus the King is of the best type. He gives the example why. He tells us why. The messenger, I hope all of you know the story or know what happens in the play Oedipus the King. The messenger from Corinth comes and tells Oedipus about the death of his foster mother, Menope. His father Polybus, his foster father Polybus is no more. But Oedipus does not want to go to Corinth because still there is one thing in his mind, there is a fear in his mind that according to oracle he was supposed to establish physical relationship with his mother also. So he shows his unwillingness to go back to Corinth. But the messenger who wants to relieve Oedipus of the fear, he wants to make him free from the fear, tells him something else. He says that don't worry, my lord, Menope is not your real mother. She is not your biological mother. You are the son of somebody else, but you were only brought up by Polybus and Menope. Now this discovery brings certain changes in the life of Oedipus, and then we see that he falls upon evil days. Ultimately he blinds himself and he finds himself in a very difficult situation. So according to Aristotle, this is the best example of Oedipus the King is the best example of discovery. Next. Yes. Then he gives some conditions he points out some conditions for a good plot. Aristotle says that a perfectly good man in the plot of a tragedy, a perfectly good man must not be seen passing from happiness to misery, right? Because if a man is perfectly good, the emotion of pity will not be aroused in us because he is not like us, and we feel pity for the people like us. So there will not be the it will fail to arouse the emotion of pity. Secondly, the fall of a perfectly good man will definitely shock us, but it will not arouse the emotion of fear in us. The second thing, a bad man must not be seen rising from misery to happiness, because this will not satisfy the sense of morality in us. It will definitely disturb our moral sense. So Aristotle says that a perfectly evil person will not be shown to move from misery to happiness. And the third important thing is an extremely bad man must not be seen falling from happiness to misery, because again this will not evoke the emotions of pity and fear, because the fall of an extremely bad person will definitely not disturb us greatly. Next. Then comes once again there are certain things that Aristotle throws light on. Plot must deal with an action which is possible according to the laws of probability and necessity, right? So this means in a tragedy the dramatist must not include anything that is not relevant. Every episode, every incident covered in a tragedy must be relevant, and different incidents must be interrelated with each other, and they must take place according to the laws of probability and necessity. By probability and necessity, he says that one more thing that he tells us about probability is that the action must be convincing or credible. If it is not that, we will not be interested in it. They must be probable. Sometimes it so happens that we feel that certain things are not probable in life, but it is the art of the dramatist which present such things in a probable manner, and that is why Aristotle says that it is better to present, you see, unconvincing things in a probable way than to present probable things in an unconvincing manner, right. So, probability and necessity are very important ingredients of a tragedy. Next thing is that the poet should take, or the poet or the writer of a tragedy, the dramatist, the poet should take great care to make his denouement or resolutions effective. Yes, resolution or denouement means the unraveling of, you see, incidents, unraveling of things, that should be done in a very effective manner. If this does not happen, the audience, the spectators will not be satisfied in the least. The third thing is that Aristotle disapproves of the plots with a double end. The plots with double end means happiness for some characters and misery for others. So, this type of end, double end, Aristotle says weakens the tragic effect. So, this must not happen. The tragedy must happen, must end with catastrophe. There must be unhappiness for most of the characters in a tragedy. Next, characterization. Next comes characterization. Aristotle says the characters must be good. He says that they must be good, but not too good. Characters must be good. By good he means fine or noble. The character should be good, but must not be too good, because if a good person passes from happiness to misery, then only the arousal of the emotions of pity and fear will be possible. Next is the second thing is the characters must be appropriate. By appropriate he means that the characters must be true to their status, they must be true to their type. For example, if a woman is presented or introduced in a tragedy, she must behave the way a woman is supposed to behave. She must behave like a woman, she must not be manly, right. If a king is introduced in a drama, in a tragedy, then he must behave what a king is traditionally supposed to behave. Aristotle says that if the story has been taken from any myth or history, the dramatist should see that the characters behave exactly the way those characters were supposed to behave. He gives the example once again of Oedipus. If a character plays the role of Oedipus the king, then he must behave the way Oedipus is supposed to behave in his days. So, here also once again I would like to draw your attention to one thing, that Aristotle has in his mind the Greek tragedies in which the characters from history, myth were drawn, right. Next is the characters must have likeness, that means they must be like us, they must be true to life. If the characters are like us, then only we will get involved with them, then only we will be interested in them. If they are not like us, if they are not you see in certain things ordinary people like us, then they will fail to interest us in any way. And the last is the character must be consistent, right. They must be true to their nature. By consistent, Aristotle means that the characters must be true to their nature, right. Now, if a character is introduced as a rash and impulsive character, then he must be consistently rash and impulsive throughout the tragedy, right? And that's why Aristotle says that if an inconsistent character is introduced in a tragedy, he must be inconsistent, he must be consistently inconsistent throughout the play, right? Next slide. Then Aristotle talks of the tragic hero. He discusses in detail the characteristics of an ideal tragic hero, and he says that the tragic hero should be good but not too good. Once again the same thing, if he is not good, will not feel any respect and reverence for him, we won't feel ourselves attached to him in any way. But he must not be too good, because if he is too good, then the emotions of pity and fear will not be aroused. Once again I would like to repeat the same thing, that if he is very good, if he is too good, then the emotion of pity will not be aroused, because he is not like us. And if he is too bad, then there is no problem of the arousal of pity and fear. Secondly, the tragic hero should not be an utterly wicked person. If he is utterly wicked, then will our sense of justice will be satisfied, because the fall of an utterly wicked person will please us, but there will not be problem of there will be no question of the arousal of the emotions of pity and fear. The third thing is, he falls from a position of lofty eminence. He is on a very high status, and he falls from that position. For example, a king, Oedipus king, towards the end of the play we see that he blinds himself and he is exiled. So he falls from an eminent position. He should be of intermediate kind. Intermediate kind means he must not be too good, he must not be too wicked a character, right? And last thing is that the disaster which wrecks his life is not due to deliberate wickedness on his part, but due to hamartia. Hamartia is a very important word, and by hamartia Aristotle means error of judgment. The character in the course of his actions commits something, commits a deed, makes a mistake that proves to be fatal for him, and hamartia can be committed in a number of circumstances. For example, it may be an outcome of ignorance of things. He does not know what is going on, what are the circumstances, and he commits hamartia. He makes an error of judgment. Secondly, sometimes it so happens that he is careless in his view, he is hasty or careless in his view of things. Thirdly, sometimes it is a voluntary act, but then that is not done deliberately. For example, when a man does something in anger, that is a voluntary act, but that is something that has not been done deliberately. It was not his intention to do that. Once again he says that hamartia that is found in the case of Oedipus king is of the best kind, because he commits a mistake, he commits error of judgment in the form of killing his own father Laius. He is unaware of the fact, he does not know the things around him, he does not know that Laius is his own father. When unknowingly he marries his own mother Jocasta, once again he is ignorant of the things, he does not know anything what is happening with him, and that's why he commits a mistake. There is an error of judgment in his case. Next, yes, fate plays a vital role in bringing the catastrophe. In Greek tragedy, fate has a very significant role to play. As once again I would like to give the example of Oedipus king. Whatever we know that was his error of judgment, that he killed his father and married his mother, but there is something we feel that while reading or watching a Greek play, Greek tragedy, we definitely feel that the things are predetermined. his actions, though he himself commits mistakes, we feel that the things that he has committed, the action he has done, were not his free choice. He was bound somewhere. It was knowingly or unknowingly that arbitrary power of fate that has worked. But sometimes it so happens that it is the sin of, in the case of Greek tragedy, sometimes it is the sins of forefathers that they are punished. The characters are punished because of the sins of their forefathers. Sometimes they have to suffer because of this arbitrary power of fate. Yes, the things are predetermined. The three unities: unity of action. Once again, it must have organic quality. It must have. We have already discussed it. It must have a beginning, middle, and end. There is unity of time. Aristotle says that the tragedy, attempts as far as possible to remain within one revolution of the sun. That means 24 hours. 24 hours. Third is unity of place. That means unity of place means the place in a tragedy should not change. If the scene changes, it must not be too great a distance. Right now, Aristotle makes a mention of only unity of action, but these unities, it is seen that, or you must have observed that these unities, all the three unities are observed in Greek tragedies. Next, functions of tragedy. Tragedy arouses the emotions of pity and fear, and in this way brings about the catharsis of these emotions. The Greek word catharsis has three meanings: purgation, purification, and clarification. Aristotle himself has not explained the term catharsis, though so scholars have tried to explain the word in their own ways, but in Greek this particular word catharsis has three meanings. Purgation. So some scholars likens this word with homeopathic treatment, in which like cures likes. So they believe that in a tragedy our emotions of pity and fear are artificially excited, artificially evoked, but they purge the real emotions of pity and fear that are lying in us. Right. The next thing is the next theory is purification. Some critics believe, some scholars are of the opinion that catharsis means tragedy, the tragic action purifies our emotions